Google Drive organization is really important for new teachers. I'm a firm believer that the longer you've been teaching, the more of a dumpster fire your Google Drive is. So we are going to go ahead and look at how you can organize your Drive right away for brand new teachers to keep it that way. So this is my general Google Drive right here. And I'm going to be going over some very quick tips and tricks for beginning new teachers to manage the space in Google Drive. The first thing I always suggest is to go up here to Settings. And within Settings, this is where you can change some defaults. You can change how comfortable, compact, or cozy all of the files are. If you don't want that bar up here on the top that says the most recent files that have been used, you can once again go through here into settings and turn all of those off. Another default suggestion I have is to go to converting uploads. Click this on if you're going to be in the Google space a lot. The reason I say to do this is because if you are adding in a Microsoft Word document or Excel, they're automatically going to convert any of those files to a Google format that is easy to use. The next suggestion I have for new teachers is to make sure that you have all of your files into folders. Another thing is how you configure these folders and files to make things much more organized and easier to use throughout the year. I'm going to go into my teaching folder and I'm going to show you that I had a folder for every year. I'm going to go into the 2018-19 school year and you can see that I have a lot of different folders here for all of my different subject areas. Brand new teachers can choose to organize them by units, subjects, departments. One of the things I suggest before you make a lot of folders is to kind of map out your folders and your subfolders on Google Docs. Here's my Google Doc where I had planned out all of my folders and my subfolders. I taught elementary, so I used a lot of subject folders. And then within those folders, I had subfolders for each of the different units I taught, and then the lessons or things that within those units. Some extra main folders that I also would keep are things that I would use all the time to help me remember different phases throughout the year. So I had a classroom management folder for beginning of the year, classroom setting it up, end of the year, taking things down. Also for classroom systems like files, labels. Once you know what that structure is, you can go back here and start mapping out and planning out all of your folders. So to make a new folder in your Drive, we're going to go to New and New Folder. Google will default to alphabetizing all of your folders. Here's some ways to keep those a little bit more organized within your Drive. One way is to add color. That is by right-clicking on the folder and going to change color, and we can change it to a different color. Another way is after you have named it once, you've already named it, we're going to go to rename by right-clicking on that. And I can either add an image, so I'm going to go right-click again and add an emoji. The thing is, if you do add an image, that is going to reorder your folders based on the name of that icon. So one thing I also suggest is to use numbers if you want your files to be named differently. So if I put 0 in front of this, it's going to put that automatically to the front. If you very much want everything to be named alphabetically, but you do like the emojis, what you can do is just take all of that out and add emojis to the end of the title, and it will continue to alphabetize them correctly. Now let's talk about naming the files within the folders. I'm going to open up this folder. I have subfolders for all of the different units I teach. I have a name for each of the lessons as well as the response sheet for all of the answers. What I'm going to show you is that for each of these, I ended up naming them with a tag. So I ended up putting Sci at the front of it. The reason I did this is if you have a tag, or some people actually put actual hashtags. If I want to find all of my science files, no matter what folder they're in, if I just put SCI, it should be able to search all of that science. Another way to think about file naming conventions is I have the Sci in front. A lot of people feel like it was good to put dates in front of all of their files. If you put the dates in front, and especially if you're a fan of using grid view, all you're going to see is the beginning part of all of those file names, which can get really confusing if it's all just the same date. So if you do want to add a date, I suggest adding the date to the end of a file name and just adding that first part at the beginning. If you do want to tag, either put that at the end, or if you put it at the front, make it very short. Now we're going to quickly go back to My Drive and let's talk about search in Google Drive. Typing in a specific word or something within Drive is very intuitive, but you also have the option here to drop down for search options. So you can look for any type. So I'm going to go ahead and go to My Drive right here, and then I can kind of further dig down into all of those files. One thing I also suggest is not having a ton of different folders so that it's harder to find them, but just to keep sort of a naming consistency with folders or keep very minimal within the subfolders kind of defeats the point of trying to find files easily. So I'm going to select it from this folder and I'm going to hit search. If you do have a file that you use all the time and you want to know where it is, if I open up that file, I can add this file to a starred file. So I'm going to hit star, and that's going to star it up here. But more importantly, within My Drive, if I go here to my starred files, they're going to all show up right here. Don't star everything because that also defeats the purpose of trying to find things quickly. Another thing to get into the habit of is right-clicking on a file when you're done using it for quite some time, and you can go ahead and remove that from your starred files. That's going to lead me to talk about share permissions. And all of the different apps that are Google apps, that's Slides, Forms, Sheets, all of them, they have the ability to share. Google will default everything private to only you, so it lives in My Drive. So over here in My Drive, anything that you own or that lives with you or that's yours is in My Drive. Google has the ability to collaborate with many different people. So I can go here to share, and I can add people that I want to collaborate with on this document. It is tied all into APS, so you can choose the different people. You can make them editors of this document where they can all edit at the same time and work collaboratively. This is great for student activities. One of the other things you can also change it to is where they can just view it, but they can't edit it. I'm going to select edit, and you can add a message and they will automatically get an email stating that they have access to this file. Now at any point, they can get into this document and we can work on it collaboratively in real time. Now anyone who's in this file, you can see their image up here and you can see where they are located in the document. Now this isn't shared just through your Gmail. I want to go here to Drive and show you that whenever you have something shared with you, it ends up going into a space that's called Shared with Me. Now within Shared with Me, this can get kind of overwhelming because you can't really organize this space. Anything that has been shared at any point is going to live within this Shared with Me drive. One of the issues that can get overwhelming is if staff will end up sharing a lot of items to brand new teachers, they may not exactly know where any of this lives or how to find it once it's been shared. So here is one thing you can do is go to the Shared with Me within Drive, and you can select any of those files and right click on them and add a shortcut to your drive. If you add a shortcut to your drive, I'm going to go to add shortcut, but when I go to My Drive, I have that file here. That file now has a little arrow on the bottom of it. The reason that it has an arrow means that it does not belong to me. Here in Drive, there are actually two different views. So this here is the grid view where you can see larger icons of everything. And then the other option is to go to list view. And now you can see it in a drop-down list. So I'm going to go here to list view again. And I'm going to notice that it does not belong to me. It belongs to someone else, but I now have access to be able to move this file and put it in different places like my teaching folder here. I still have access to it, but if there's any changes or updates on that file, because it was shared with me, I'll still have access to all of those updates. If you have a file, I'm going to go back to Shared with Me, that is something that is in a template or something that you know you want to use, or it's not a living document, You can do something very similar and go right click on it and go to make a copy. So right click, make a copy. And then when you go to My Drive, that's where it's going to make a copy of that file for you. So if I change to that list view again, what that does is it makes you the owner of the file. So you can make changes to the file, you can edit it. It is now your file. Or if I open the file itself, you can go up here to File and make a copy. Every time you make a copy, it usually defaults into My Drive. If you don't notice that, or you're not very specific about changing this every single time you make a copy, which a lot of people do, what you end up with in your drive is a lot of copy of files. If you keep the root space, I call this the root space of your drive, fairly empty, what I like to keep in my root drive are any files like these ones that I use constantly or that I get into all the time, or ones that I'm using immediately. And I put all the other ones in folders. That way, if I ever have copies or something shared with me, I can find it very quickly in my drive without losing it. So for brand new teachers especially, if they're trying to share out a file or maybe a slide deck or something that they want all of their students to collaborate on, it is kind of hard to go to share and then add every single person here to this space. So what you can do is you can also create a link to this document that can be shared within Google Classroom, shared through an email, or even shared out through Pear Deck. If I go to share, and I change this from being restricted to anyone at APS with this link can edit this file, it's going to give you a link that is shareable. If you share this link, once all the permissions are set up correctly, so you can go to copy link and you share that out where they just put it in a URL or it's a clickable link, then anyone who gets that link is going to be able to make changes right here within that document without being added to that other share space. Those are just some ideas on how you can organize Google Drive. I'm going to go into my Drive a little bit to show you a couple other ideas. Here I have a more folder. Some teachers have called it a junk folder, an extra folder. These are for files I'm not sure where they fit in any of my categories, or I'm not sure I want to really get to them right now. I don't really have a place for them. The important thing to remember if you do this is that getting to it later doesn't mean getting to it never. So you just need to make sure that that is going to be a thing that is a priority for later. These are some quick ways for teachers to stay organized within their Google Drive space. So let's brainstorm ways you organize your Drive, or things that you think would be important to mention to beginning teachers and why that would be important to manage this space. Now that I've shown you a lot of tips and tricks within Google Drive, I'm going to show you this optional section of this video for some updates that have recently happened in the Google Drive space. One of the first places you're going to want to check is settings. So I had mentioned settings before, but now there are some new ones. So within settings, one of the newest things are keyboard shortcuts. So now you have a very big link of keyboard shortcuts, which allow you to maneuver and open things within your Drive without having to click on everything. Also within settings are some new updates down here for file preview cards, sounds, sharing here. And so what I wanted to do was make sure all of those were on. So when I go back out from settings, I can show you what that looks like. If I go here to a list view, before you could only see the titles of all of your files, but if you hover over this icon, you're going to be able to see that preview card like you can from this grid view. Now, if you are in grid view and you decide to hover over an icon, you can still see who the owner of that file is and what the last changes and edits were. Another new update is over here. There's a couple of new spaces. If you go to home, this is Google AI helping to decide which files or which folders you have been using the most lately, and they're going to pop those up onto your screen in your home space. Now underneath home is activity. So with activity, if you're ever wondering if someone has shared something with you or if they have specific comments or have requested access from something you shared out, those are now going to be held within this space. These are all of the items that have been shared with me by most recent, and I can actually hover over that person and see where they're at and get some details about them to see if I want to open that file. Up here are the access requests. So here I can go to manage access, and I'm going to see any types of comments that have been left within this document, as well as people asking to edit or make changes within a file or document, or if they have been asked to be an editor on a specific file. Now we're going to go over here to My Drive, and I'm just going to find a file right here. And if I right click on this file, there is a section that's a little bit different that is called File Information. And I can look at details here about this file, where it is housed, what date it was made on, last time somebody changed it. I can also go here and look at activity, which shows me when this file was last edited, the person who last edited it, if there was any share permission changes on this file, and it is all here within this space. The last thing to look at here in Drive with right-clicking on a file, going back to file information, is you can now lock a file from this space. So if I hit lock, this will prevent anyone from editing or commenting on this file. Now, another update you're going to notice here is if I click on a specific file, you're going to notice a bar comes up here now where you can share, download, move, delete, or grab the link to that file right here up on the top. And finally, if you make sure that you click on My Drive, you're going to want to make sure that you were there and you've refreshed it. You are going to notice some filters up here. So you can figure out the last 7 days, the most recent files and documents that you have used. I'm going to clear off that filter. You can look at from specific people that either own this or that you've shared this with. And then you can also filter by types. You can filter by sites, audio, drawings, documents. Another workaround for that is docs.google.com or sites.google.com or sheets.google.com. That's going to open only the docs that exist in your Drive. But let's go back to Drive real quick. The one thing I really like about the filters now is you can filter by shortcuts. So I did mention taking a shared with me document and adding it to your Drive as a shortcut, and it will filter out all of those shortcuts, and I can see all of those files that I don't own that are owned by somebody else. Okay, and one final thing, which I haven't set up yet, which is kind of surprising for me actually, is there is dark mode now in Google Drive. Ooh, I kind of like it. I think I might keep it. So those are just a few quick updates now